Hey guys, before we get started, I want to let you know that I've actually already filmed everything and I'm in the process of editing. During edit, I noticed that the camera is extremely tilted, even though in front of me it looks very straight. Now that's happening for one of three reasons. Number one, it is the imbalance on the flat earth that social distancing has caused. Number two, there may or may not be somebody underneath the table. Or three, maybe I'm just really excited. And while I do apologize, I don't want to reshoot everything because the content was pretty decent, so I'll give you a few hints. Number one, you can tilt your head like this for the entire review. However, I don't want any lawsuits against me for a sore neck. So for that reason, if you're watching on a mobile device, just slightly tilt that. Good luck to those of you that have 75-inch TVs. You can also pull out a Kama Sutra book and try one of those positions. Let's get started. Hey guys, I am one of the first to receive this custom 1/4 scale Black Panther on throne. But they promised to send me one first if I do a review. And I gotta say, this is by far the most amazing, beautiful, awesome, underrated, I can't read this word. I don't know what he wanted me to say. Hey guys, welcome to the Extreme channel. Today we're about another Extreme collectible. This is, as I said in the intro, a custom, which means a private commission. Usually they make less than 100. They're making exactly 100 of these. Black Panther on Throne comic version. So what I mean by comic version, it's not the Black Panther of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that is very popularized today, but a lot of the same elements. And kind of having some fun in that intro. So what they did is, I'm a big buyer of this commission group. I love their pieces. This is actually the first piece I have in hand, however. They're big into throne statues. And as you guys know, I love throne statues. I actually have a video that counts down the best throne statues. And they made their first few production pieces to check for quality. That's the way this group rolls. And they reached out to me as I'm a paying customer. I pay the same price everyone else does, which we'll talk about during value. And they said, do you want yours first? See if you guys can do a review on it. And I said to them, you know that I'm pretty raw on these reviews. I give my opinion whether it's good or bad. And he said, that's what I want from you. I want an honest opinion. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to use the Extreme scale to review this piece. Concept, design, paint, sculpt, value. Does it have the overall X factor? And what's kind of crazy is I just boxed up most of my Avenger pieces because there's actually a video, I think it actually dropped yesterday, depending when I drop this, of selling off my Avenger pieces. While clearly Black Panther is an Avenger, this is a throne piece, so it stays in my collection. And while Black Panther isn't necessarily one of my most favorite comic characters, I love some huge aspects of the Black Panther, not only his abilities, but his story. And then I think this throne just tells an awesome story. It's an awesome throne to have. But before we dive into the review, let's talk about some giveaways. We are growing and we are growing fast. So one way you can help us continue to grow is throw down a comment. Make sure you comment during this review. And if you do, you may win a monthly prize. Second, we're giving away a statue. Check this out. On our road to 20,000 subs, we are giving out this Mortal Kombat statue at 12,500 subs. All you have to do is make sure you've liked this video, you've subscribed to the channel, and you've hit that bell notification and stay tuned for that giveaway. So lastly, I teased this on Instagram and Facebook yesterday, and you might be noticing the color was a little bit different. That's because I did use a filter. So today you're going to see plenty of close-ups with the color. And if you haven't done it yet, check out the Extreme Channel Facebook page. It is in the description below. The link is. Go ahead and like and follow that as well. But let's start the review with concept. Concept is, does it match the source material? I don't know what the source material here is, so I'm not sure. Is it cool? Is it true to the character? So nowadays, everybody's putting characters on a throne. Now, the really cool thing about Black Panther is he is really a king. So this makes sense. And what I love that they've done about the throne is there are so many affluences to the African culture within it. It is not only a stone with all this cool ornate stuff we're going to look over, but you can actually see this is kind of in the wilderness, which is more of a tie to Black Panther's character, kind of the tribal aspect of it. And as you move up, the throne is not only carved out of what looks like a mountainside with some steps in the front, but they have Black Panthers all around him, which makes it even cooler. They're the armrests. They're actually coming out of the throne. This is a piece, which we'll talk about in a second, that may have some danger that the throne actually takes away from the character, which can be dangerous. And as you move up, you start to see more of the royalty aspect of it with the gold pieces, This ornate design, and again, some of these, there is definitely some African heritage tied to it, which is awesome. And it's just a true awesome centerpiece. I love everything they did with it. You're going to see some cool stuff in design, not only with light up features, but something hidden that's very, very cool. And he's sitting there very majestic, very kingly, very proud. He doesn't have any switch outs or anything, but I don't think there needs to be any. So I look at this. Did they capture Black Panther as a king? Yes, they did. Did they encompass his powers? They didn't necessarily, but there is one thing, like I said, in design I'll show you, kind of a hidden Easter egg, a great feature. But he is wearing his suit at least, so that's a huge pro. There's ties to the comic itself. You know, one of the great things about Black Panther is it was one of the first comics that really gained popularity that showed a different culture instead of your typical white guys like me always taking the screen. So I love that they tied back to the original elements of that, and they did it in such a cool and unique way. You know, one of the things you're going to see during paint and sculpt, there's just as much going on in the back as there is the front. And some guys really like that. I love the concept of this. I think it's a perfect concept. It's 5 out of 5. If you want Black Panther on a throne, I think they hit every single aspect you would want. Now with design, there's also some really, really neat things. And let's start off, let's get the dimensions first, because I've been forgetting that a lot lately, and then we'll go into the unboxing. But he's about 25 inches wide, so he's going to command a lot of space. A little under 20 inches tall, and then I want to say deep 17. So he does take up a lot of room, especially when you look at it. Most of it is not the character, but we'll come back to that. Let's take a look at the unboxing and assembly. Standard shipper box. It actually was not as big as I thought it would be.
That's what she said.
No art box or anything, just your standard white foam with some straps, and it was 2 layers. First layer was pretty much everything except the base, and then some power options you're going to see in a second I was not aware of. But the base commands a lot of presence. It actually makes it easy to carry when the statue is completely assembled as well, which is something small, but I do appreciate it. And as I said, I didn't really need instructions, but everything fit in really well. It was really easy, very strong magnets. You can even see it kind of jump away from me right there. And these are 2 kind of decorative aspects we'll look at closer in paint and sculpt. They're not as royal as I would say some of the rest of the pieces, almost like they were handmade or specifically meant to be hand painted. So it's really not a lot of different pieces. So similar to the pieces on top I just put in, these guys right here go into the sides. Very similar, kind of this handmade, authentic African heritage stuff. And it's all by magnet. Very easy to assemble. And then Black Panther himself, he doesn't come with his arms or head attached, which there are no switch outs or anything, but he sits in via magnet, and it's a pretty strong magnet. It pulls him down really, really fast, which when you'll see me put on the arms, I did have a small concern with that. I was almost worried the arms or the nails would get stuck or chipped on the paint, but it eventually worked really well actually. And then the head just sits in there. And the reason that the head, you'll see in a second, there's a specific reason that it's not attached to the body. It was kind of surprising actually. It was one of the things I was going to take off for in design. Then it also came with the power sources as well. So it's kind of your standard USB cable, and they did provide that, as well as the AC adapter, the plug that goes into the wall, and this lights up the Panther eyes. And this last piece here is just a little bit of an Easter egg we'll talk more about, but it really surprised me. Very, very cool. So as you saw on there, it does have a light up feature that connects via USB AC adapter. Here's another picture of it. It looks great. I think it's not too bright. It's not too dim. It is perfect, exactly what you'd want. And if you can connect it to maybe the display lighting, it is awesome. And then let's look at that hidden black light again. So it actually comes with a pretty powerful black light. I was pretty surprised by that. And it does a pretty decent job showing the blue. I'm about 12 inches away from it with this black light right now. So pretty impressive. It would be neat if you could figure out how to do a black light somewhere in the lighting that you specifically put on this guy. But from above or below, Very, very cool hidden feature. I've never seen anything like this before. Huge props to them on this. As I said, assembly went really well. No directions, nothing needed. Magnets were all really strong. Everything fit perfectly. One thing I was a little worried is Black Panther. Is he too small? How does he scale? So let's check that out. Now the biggest issue with this is I can't compare his body because he's sitting down. So I took him next to some heads. This first one is a custom Thor on throne head. And as you can see, he is significantly smaller, which that didn't worry me at all because Black Panther is a smaller guy compared to Thor. All my licensed Avengers box up, I chose a licensed X-Men. This is Sideshow Mystique, premium format. So he looks a lot smaller here as well. So I think it is indicative he is smaller, but keep in mind his neck isn't in this picture, so that makes it look a little bit smaller. But he is definitely smaller than a traditional 1/4 scale, I believe. And also, check this out. I didn't even see it earlier, but his head comes off and you can light up his eyes. I was going to say, as I assembled this, this was the one missing piece to the design, but it is clearly there. So that whole scale thing, I don't know how that sits with me. Because if it was true scale, I'd say it's about 10% too small for a 1/4 figure, because Black Panther is a little bit more slim. I would say that if this was 10% bigger, the whole statue it would be too big. So I'm kind of on the fence. Yes, he's not true 1/4 scale in my opinion. He's a little bit smaller than that, but I don't think you notice it at all with the giant throne. And then if he was bigger, then the throne would almost be too big. So kind of a tough one. So overall with design, I love the light up features. I love the hidden black light. I think everything fit together really well. I think it's just the right size. It's almost a little bit too big, but like I said, if they made it even bigger, then it wouldn't work design-wise. So I think I have to give it a 4 out of 5 on the design. It would be a 5 out of 5 if it was true 1/4 scale, and I think it's about 10% too small. Now we're going to dive into the paint and sculpt, and in short, it's really good. I was a little worried. A lot of times concrete is really easy to miss, but I don't think they missed it here. Let's take a look. So just looking at the concrete in general here, it's really good. I love the texture work on it. One of the things you're going to see in the paint, it's a lot of the same monotone paint, but realistically, if this was carved out of a mountain, I don't think it would be too many different colors other than the whites, grays, a few different shades of grays, and then some black shadowing in there. And then look at this. They have some vegetation or shrubbery through this. And it is definitely painted on there. It looks like real grass. I love how that's growing. I think it varies up the stone part quite a bit. I think it does a really good job separating it, making it not as boring. Because the stone's a darker color, you're also obviously going to see that on Black Panther. Take a look at the bottom here, this gold ornate design. I love this. Again, it all adds a lot of contrast to the statue. It makes it more almost royal-like, king-like, so that you really see that this is a throne. And then I know I'm jumping all over, but then there's a lot of water here to give it that cave-like effect. This clear resin in between the cracks to let you know that this isn't inside of a palace. You know, it's either inside of a cave or at the top of a mountain. And I think it just adds an overall effect to the statue, again, mixing it up. Let's look at the Panthers here. The sculpt on these is phenomenal. They look badass. They look harsh. Obviously, they're Panthers. There's no doubt in that. I like that a lot, and I think the position of them is done really well. Let's look at the decorative stuff up top here, the gold, and this is definitely a different, you can tell this wasn't necessarily harshly carved out of stone, the gray parts on there. I love the designs. It's very detailed, very kingly, like royalty, and then even the, I don't even know what you call these, but they almost look like hand-painted aspects with some African influence to them right above in his chair, right on the back here. Looks great. Almost looks like a little bit of brown in there, in those. It does a good job mixing up the colors further. Now let's get to Black Panther here. I like his suit a lot. I like the texture on it. It's not overly textured, but it's textured a decent amount. It's almost too much, but not quite. I think they did a nice job, and then you can see the silver aspects of the costume just cutting in. And I think the design of Black Panther in general, not just on this piece right here, was really meant that silver part was meant to kind of vary it up so it's not one solid black costume. And his anatomy looks great. He's very trim, very thin, so while the muscle is there, it's not like a bodybuilder muscle. It's more like an Olympic athlete. And I think that suits him really well, especially with his abilities, kind of the tiger prowess. So well done on that. But he's very ripped overall. I mean, even look at his torso. It looks great. It looks really, really good. Check out the gauntlets here. there's a little bit different texture, almost like these are huge gloves, and then you see more of the silver metallic aspects on there. And then as you move up to his hands, the classic Black Panther hands with claws. The only thing I would suggest, the actual fingernails claws look great, but maybe if they could have been more shiny. I think that would have made him look a little bit more badass, almost like they would have been, you know, I mean, they're vibranium, obviously. This looks just like metal. So I think that could have been a little bit better, but that's kind of nitpicking. Check out his portrait. His portrait, very comic-like. So you see, it almost looks like he's wearing a helmet, a ceremonial helmet. I'm not sure about the mouth area, but it looks like a Black Panther, a lot more than like the MCU mask did. So I think they wanted to stay truer to the origins, which was very smart, and they did a very good job on it. Looks great. And then it also has some of that high-tech texture on there to really let you see that this is a high-tech suit. It's a perfect mix, I think, between a suit, tying in with the ancestry, and then also the high-tech aspect of it. Now, the biggest concern with this statue is it's a Black Panther on a dark gray throne. And I have to say, it is a concern. This thing is washed out really easy when you don't have a lot of light on it. So if you're going to display this, you definitely want it in a bunch of light, especially to see a lot of the details. I think what they did with the paint and sculpt of the throne-like pieces around it to vary up the color was very smart, along with the vegetation that's growing. I think that helps alleviate it quite a bit. But I'm really trying to think of what could have been done differently. I don't want the throne lighter, and obviously you can't make Black Panther lighter. So I think they did a great job. The only thing I caution people is you're going to have to shine a decent amount of light on it. Otherwise, it blends together some. But even with that, I think the paint is still a 4 out of 5 on it. I think it's really well done. Even the messy part here, kind of what I said is kind of that tribal affluence. It looks like it's supposed to be messy compared to the rest of the throne. And I'm hoping that was intentional, because if it was done really well and it was genius. If it wasn't intentional, then it's a mess. Kind of funny how things work out. Now let's talk about the sculpt. Black Panther's great. I think the anatomy's great. The suit's great. The Panthers are awesome. The stone is good, is very good. Not as awesome. So I think overall the sculpt on this is a 4 out of 5 piece. It lands right in the middle. All right, so let's talk about value on this guy. So it's a 1/4 piece, and it's very large, almost like a diorama. It was $1,100, $10.99. So you're looking right about, you know, even a little cheaper than Prime 1 pricing for a piece like this. So I think the price is definitely in range. Because I did want one of the first pieces, shipping was $600, unfortunately, because as you guys know right now with everything going on in the world, shipping prices are through the roof. So that took me a hit. So when I think about value, I think about the original price. Does it fall in line with other pieces? This is rare. This is unique. Right now it's really unique, but there's going to be 100 of these. Can I get my money back? That's always a concern. So with retail at $1,100, $1,700 for this, yes, I can get that back for this. That'll be pretty easy, actually. This is a very, very cool piece, especially with the fact the MCU, even though this isn't based off that, they're creating more Black Panther movies. So the value is definitely there, but it's not like I got it for a steal. So I think at this time, because the shipping price was so high for me, I have to consider it. I think the value is a 3 out of 5. I think if they can get the shipping down when the rest of the production pieces are done, which they probably can probably cut it in half, I think the value would be much higher. So overall, does this have the X factor? Now, as I said, one of my problems is I'm not the biggest Black Panther fan. He's not like one of my top 5 characters. So I think that, for that reason alone, it's not an X factor to me. But I think that's really the only thing holding it back. So I think it's a 4 out of 5 overall. I think it's a rail. It's not quite a grail, but people will be after this for a while. Black Panther on throne. I think he has I think he's really underrated sometimes, and this statue really encompasses a lot of what you want out of him. So again, make sure you check out my Facebook page. In a few days, I will post pictures of where he is in the throne collection right next to, I think I'm putting him next to Ultron or Thor or Loki, some other Avengers type throne pieces. Check that out. So as always, really appreciate you guys watching. Make sure if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that Mr. X logo so you can subscribe to the channel, or check out some of these other custom statue reviews. This one is definitely a keeper. It's definitely a winner, and so are some of these other ones. Thanks so much, guys. Take care.